Be'ez Hashem, today's daf is Daf Nun Hey Masechta Nazir. We're getting closer to finish, and we're discussing a question. We're going to start from the top of the page, Lemika Tanai, and we'll just go back to discuss what we're talking about over here. You know, a Nazir that touches a dead body, of course, you know, he ruins his Naziris. He has to start over again, right? Start the count over again. There are things that Chazal said that you become Tameh. And if a Nazir became tummy this way, he doesn't ruin his Nazir, so to speak. And one of the things that we know, and we've heard about this before, there's called a Tumas Eretz Ha'amim. The Mishnah says that if you walk into Chutz La'aretz, you leave Eretz Yisrael, Chachamim said that anybody who walks into Chutz La'aretz is automatically tummy. Now, what was the reason that Chachamim said anybody who walks into Chutz La'aretz is automatically tummy? Is because the whole Chutz La'aretz had from the Mabul, there was a lot of dead people all over planet Earth, and therefore you never know. You might be you might be touching a bone of a body, or moving bodies, touching a dead person or something like that, or you're in a cemetery. Maybe Jews were buried there, and you know how it is. And even if you go to Eastern Europe, you could be walking on the street there and thinking that everything's okay, and then 200 years ago there was a cemetery there. So Chachamim said that anywhere you go in Eretz Amim, hi Lewis, we just began, and we're starting from Daf Nun Hey Amad Aleph. So we're just discussing over here that Chachamim said that if you go into Chutz La'aretz, somebody leaves Israel and goes into Europe, let's say, he automatically becomes Tameh. And the question is, what was part of the Chachamim? What are they most concerned that you're going to be touching the ground of Chutz La'aretz, and therefore, if you touch the ground of Chutz La'aretz, you become Tameh, right? Because maybe you're standing on a Jewish cemetery, you don't know. Or Chachamim went even further and said that just being in the airspace of Chutz La'aretz, even if there's an interruption between you and the ground, just being in smelling in the Chutz La'aretz air, you become Tameh. For example, how is it possible to be in Chutz La'aretz and smelling Chutz La'aretz air but not touching the ground? So imagine you go in this huge closet, this huge portable IKEA closet, right? That's very heavy, and you're in that closet. Somebody carries you into Chutz La'aretz. So there is assuming it's made of a certain material that's not Makabel Tuma, or even if it is, if it's so big, it's not going to be Makabel Tuma. So therefore, from Tumei Mace, you're not going to be Tameh out Tumei Mace. But the fact is that you're breathing in the air of Eretz Amim. So perhaps Chachamim made that gezerah. That's the question. Ibaylahu Eretz Amim, going into Chutz La'aretz, Mishum Avira Gazrula. Did they also include the fact that you're in the avir of Chutz La'aretz? That's why Chachamim said you're Tameh. And therefore, even if you went into Chutz La'aretz with a big box, you're still going to be Tameh. The only Chachamim were only concerned that you're going to step on the ground of Chutz La'aretz. But if you're in an apparatus that you're not on the ground of Chutz La'aretz, you're in a big box that's really like an enclosed capsule, so to speak, then you won't be Tameh of Chutz La'aretz. So let's go to top of Nun Hey Amud Aleph again. It'll be a very short daf. Lema ketanoi. Let us say that this is a machlokes tanoim. Haniknas le'eretz amen. The Mishnah says, the Brisa says, if you go into Chutz La'aretz, b'shida, teva, umigdal, a chest, a box, or a let's say armoire, a cabinet, chest, box, or cabinet. So therefore, Rabbi says you're matame. Rabbi says you become tameh. You're certainly in your own enclosed capsule, and you're not touching the ground, so to speak, of Chutz La'aretz. Rabbi still says you're tameh. Rabbi Yosi Bar Yehuda metaher. Rabbi Yosi Bar Yehuda said you're tahar. My love, don't you think that this is the argument between Rabbi and Rabbi Yosi Bar Yehuda? Rabbi Sava, Rabbi holds Chachamim made Eretz Amim tameh. Chutz La'aretz is tameh mishum avira. also because you're in the just breathing in that air, and the Chachamim wanted you to only just stay in Israel, don't go out of Israel, right? Great Gedolim, some of them never left Israel. So therefore, that's why you're not supposed to, they didn't want you to be in the airspace of Chutz La'aretz. And therefore, Rabbi holds your tummy. Rabbi Yosef Yehuda Sava, Rabbi Yosef holds Mishum Gusha. The only problem that Chachamim were concerned about is touching the ground of Chutz La'aretz, because there might be a Jewish cemetery there. But if you're in a Shida Teva Migdal, which you're in your enclosed capsule, so to speak, you're not going to become Tameh because you're sort of protected in your own oil. So therefore, that's why Rabbi Yosef Yehuda says Yatar. So it's a Machlekes Tanoim, exactly what the reasoning behind going into Eretz Amim. Says the Gemara, not so. You could learn that there's one, they're dealing with another issue. The Kuli Alma, both Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda hold Mishum Gusha, that the reason why you're not allowed to go to Eretz Amim is because we're concerned of the dirt. In other words, we're concerned that there might be a Jewish cemetery where you're standing on. So then why would, if you go in a Shida Teva Migdal, why would Rebbe hold your tummy? If someone's carrying a human being in a cabinet, in a closet, in a portable closet, he's carrying a human being in that portable closet, why should that person be tummy? So Mar Sova, Rebbe holds, Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda holds oil zarek, a movable oil, a capsule that's movable, shmei oil, that's still considered a protective capsule, and therefore, as long as the man is in the Shida Teva Migdal, Rabbi Yosef Yehuda holds his tar. The fact that it's moving is also okay. Umar Sava, but Rebbe holds loy shmei oil. That's not called a protective capsule, a tent. A tent that protects a person from being mitama is, let's say, a house. You're in your house, and the mace is, let's say, outside the house, so you're in your protective capsule, but the house is not moving. The tent is not moving. But if the Shida Teva of Migdal is movable, right, then Rebbe holds that's not considered an oil, and that's why Rebbe is mitame. V'hatanya. And we learned in the Brisa. Now, everybody should hold technically that if it's something is movable, it really shouldn't be considered an oil. Let's say you have a wind blew a flying carpet, that shouldn't be considered an oil. And even Rabbi Yosef Yehuda should agree that it's not. But what makes this different, Shida Teva Migdal, is the fact that people are carrying the box. People are carrying the closet. And so therefore, humans who are carrying it are connected to the ground. So we would consider the Shida Teva Migdal like it's not so movable. It's movable because people are carrying it, but it's not movable by itself. And the people carrying it are touching the ground. So that's why it's called an oil. And Vatanya, we learned in the Brisa, and that's Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda Omer, Teva, if you have a box, a real box, a big box, Shehim Alei Kaleb, that's full of vessels in there. Okay, so it's in its own protective capsule, but uzraka al pneimes, you threw it over the face of a corpse. So then we skip this word boil, tamea. Then all the kalim that are inside the box are tameh. You're going to say it's in its own protective capsule, but the capsule is moving, it's flying. You threw it, and therefore that's not going to protect the kalim that are inside the box. But if the capsule was moved by people walking who are connected to the ground, it's not like you threw it, but people were walking the box, then tahira, all the kalim are inside are going to be tahar. So that's the issue that's discussed over here. If a movable box is considered an oil, if it's being moved by humans, Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda says it's called an oil, good protective capsule. Rebbe holds it's not. Then the Gemara gives another teretz. The Gemara is going to say, the Gemara is saying like this. The Gemara is saying, Ella de Kuli Alma, everybody holds, the Kuli Alma Mishum Avira. Everybody holds, no. You could learn the other way, that both Rebbe and both Rebbe and Rabbi Yosef Yehuda hold because of the Avi. You're not going to be in the airspace of of Eretz Amim. Umar Sava, but one holds Kevin de Shchicha loy gazer barn. Other holds that you're right. If you, let's say a person has this ship and goes in a ship into the airspace of Eretz Amim, let's say this channel of water goes into Eretz Amim, so you would become Tameh. But Rabbi holds it's not common. Rabbi Yosef Yehuda holds that it's not common that a person should walk into Eretz Amim in a box. So Kivin Deloy Shchicha, since it's not shchich, it's not common that person walks into Eretz Amim in a box. The Rabbanan didn't say, they didn't make a gzera that you become Tameh if you're in that box. Umar Sava, but Rebbe holds Afagav Deloy Shchicha, even though it's not common, the Rabbanan did make the gezerah. The Rabbanan did make the gezerah that you become tameh. So that is the machlokes. Now the Gemara continues. The Gemara continues and says that there is a proof of brisa. Hanichnas le'eretz amim. Somebody who goes into Eretz Amim b'shida u'v'teva u'v'migdal. Someone goes into the foreign country outside Israel in the box, the chest, and the cabinet. Tahar, he's tahar because it's not common. Probably it's because it's not common, and that's the opinion of Yossi Bar Yehuda. But if you go b'karayin, if you go in a wagon, ubesvina or a ship, even though you don't step off the ship, you're just in a ship. You didn't touch the ground. Uvi iskaria. Iskaria is a Greek word for a raft. Tameh, that's tameh. Why? Because it's common. That's a common mode of transportation. You didn't touch the ground, but everybody holds just being in the airspace, being in the ear and breathing in the ear of Eretz Amim is also part of what the Rabbanim did not want you to do going into Eretz Amim. The Iba is saying, if you want, I can tell you. If you want, I can tell you like this. If you want, I can tell you. Hacha, Shema, Yotzi, Roishev. Hacha, over here, we're discussing Shema, Yotzi, Roishev, Rubai. Maybe you're going to. Iba is saying, I'm going to say over here. Hacha, over here. Everybody hold it's because you're touching the ground. Back to the other way. You can learn the other way. That the reason why both Rebbe and Rabbi Yosef Yehuda hold that you're not allowed to go into Eretz Amim because the concern is touching the ground. So then, why would Rebbe say that if you go with a shida teva migdal you become tamei? So we say hacha shema yotzi roishay v'ruba l'sham pligi. Maybe you're going to stick your head out of the box. In other words, even if you hold, you're not allowed to. The whole purpose was that you don't want you to go to Eretz Amim because you may touch the ground. You could still hold that if you go on a wagon or a ship, you would also be considered usher. Everybody would hold it's usher. Why? Because everybody holds that maybe you'll stick your head or most of your body outside the wagon, and you're just like mahil. You're just putting yourself as a cover over the ground. So that will be usher. So everybody would hold it's tameh. But the question is, would you say the same when somebody's actually in an enclosed cabinet or closed closet, since it's unlikely that he's going to break through and stick his hand out and head out? So therefore, Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda says yatar. But Rabbi says, no, we're still concerned that you might stick your head and most of your body out, and therefore you're tameh. But Tanya, as we learned in a brisa, Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda says, although a ship, if you're on a ship, Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda would agree that you're tameh if you go into Eretz Amim, because even though you didn't touch the ground, but we're afraid that maybe you stuck your head out and most of your body out of the ship. But hanichnas Eretz Amim b'shida teva migdal tahar. If you go into Rabbi Yosef Yehuda says explicitly, if you go into shida teva migdal, then you're tahar. Why? Because ad sheyotzi l'sham roishay oy rubai. Until you take your whole head and most of your body out. And since it's very unlikely you're taking your whole body out of the box, so therefore you remain tahar. And Rebbe says you remain tameh. So again, we didn't resolve the question of what is the Tumah Eretz Amim. Is it only because Chachamim were concerned that you might touch the ground and you might be stepping on a Jewish cemetery? Or is it also because just being in the ear and breathing in the ear of Eretz Amim, Chachamim said you would be Tameh. And the nafkamina would be if you go in a Shida, Teva, or Migdal. And if you enter the airspace in a box, would you become Tameh or not? Now, the Gemara just discusses the Mishnah. In the Mishnah it says, let's go back to the Mishnah just for a second. Mishnah says that let's say a Nazir became quarantined because he was a Mitzorah. The Mishnah says, Uvemei Safrei, Uvemei Gemara. During the time that he's quarantined as a Mitzorah, not a Tmei Meis, he became a leprosy. And Uvemei Gemara. And when he finished his Mitziris, when he's finished Mitzoras, the Torah tells us you get out of quarantine by counting. First, they shave your head off, they shave your entire body, you wait another 7 days, and then they they give you another haircut again. If a Nazir became a Mitzorah, El Eli ain't a Nazir Megaleach. He doesn't bring karbanos because he didn't touch a dead body. But then the Mishnah says, but the fact is, it doesn't blow the count that you had earlier. But what the Mishnah means to say is that you start the count right away. You start the recount again. You have to start from square one, basically. So we're going to see that in our Gemara now. So pashtus, it means that you start recounting 30 days. That's what our Mishnah says. Now, that's what our Mishnah says. After you finish your quarantine and you finish your Mitzorah, the Nazir has to recount 30 days. Amar Rav Chizda taught us a teaching. Loishna, this was only taught Ela benazirus mu'etes, only if you had a 30-day Nazirus. So, for example, let's say after 10 days of his Nazirus, he became a Mitzorah. So let's say the whole Nazirah, the Mitzorah process, let's say a guy was a Mitzorah for a couple of weeks, 30 days, and by the 30th day, he became tar and he had to take another haircut. So then we have to recount another 30 days of Nazirus. Why? Because in order for a Nazir to call himself a completed Nazir, he has to have a head growth of 30 days of hair. But as a Mitzorah, they gave you a haircut right away. They shaved your head off. And they shaved your whole body. So therefore, in order to make sure that in order to finish your Nazirus with a growth of 30 days, they required you to count another 30 days. So only if you became a Mitzorah in a Nazirus that there's less than 30 days left, they require you to recount the whole Nazirus. Aval ben Nazirus Meruba, let's say there's 100-day Nazirus. You have a big Nazirus. So, and let's say after 30 days in the Nazirus, you became a Mitzorah. So then, even if the whole Mitzorah interruption was 30 days, and day number 60, he became a Mitzorah, he still has 40 days left for his Nazirus. And so you could count the time that he was a Mitzorah, plus you have plenty of days left for him to complete his Nazirus with a growth of 30 days. So then for Mislik Nami Salkin Lane, then the time that he was in quarantine are also counted as his part of Nazirus. So the Gemara asks one question. Mosiv Rav Shrevya. Rav Shrevya says, in the Bryce it says, that if someone was a Mitzorah, if someone became a Mitzorah, what does the Bryce say? Umaschil umoyne miyad. The Bryce says that he's maschil umoyne miyad, which means that he starts counting a new Nazirus. He starts counting the ain mevatel as a koidman, but it doesn't interrupt the count that you had before. That's what this brisa says. So, b'mai, what is this brisa talking about? That you could count up until you became a Mitzorah, and then you count again after you finished your Mitzorah. The days that you were a Mitzorah does not count. B'mai, what is this brisa talking about? Let's say if it was a small Nazirus, let's say his Nazirus was only 30 days, and at the end of the 10th day, he became a Mitzorah. So are you telling me that during the times that he was not a Mitzorah, during the times that he was a Mitzorah, you don't count? Let's say he was a Mitzorah for 30 days, that's not counted towards his Nazirus. When he finishes his Mitzorah, he should count another, finish off the Nazirus, and all he has to count is another 20 days, kaboya gidel sa'ar. But he needs that his hair to grow. So so therefore, he needs a 30-day growth. How could the Brisa says, oh, you count what he counted before, you don't count during the time that he was Mitzayra, and you finish the counting after the Mitzayra quarantine is over, you finish the counting. But if at the end of the Mitzayra counting, you're giving him you're razor blading his entire hair, so then when he's going to finish the counting, he's and in his Naziris, he only had a growth of less than 30 days. So what's pshat in this brisa? Ella, we go to Amnun Hema base. Ella lav, the brisa must be talking about Benazirus Meruba, that he made a big, large Naziris, which means, let's say he made a Naziris of 100 days. And basically, the brisa clearly states that the day that he was a Mitzayra does not count. So therefore, let's say he was in Naziris for 100 days. And let's say at the end of 30 days, he became a Mitzayra, and this Mitzayra lasted 30 days. The brisa says, don't count those 30 days of Mitzayra. That doesn't count. When he finishes his Mitzayra, you continue on your Naziris and count another 70 days. But the time that you are Mitzayra is not counted. But that's not what Rav Chizda said. Rav Chizda says you do count when you are Mitzayra. V'ktani maschil moed miyad. The brisa says you count what's remaining, but you don't count during the time that you were Mitzayra. So how do you reconcile the brisa with Rav Chizda? Answers the Gemara, who Maisivla? Rav Shervia asked this question against who? Rav Chizda. Rav Shervia, his name is. And who Mafarakla? Sometime he answered your own question. It depends. But that brisa is specifically talking about a unique case. This Naziris Bas Chamishim Yoim. It's a Naziris of 50 days. So imagine a guy made himself a Nazir for 50 days. The Yosef Esron. Then he was a Mitzayra for how many days? 20 days. The Siyal debate Tzaras. And then on day number 20, he became a Tzaras. So let's say during the time that he was a Mitzayra was 30 days. So then at the end of 30 days, you're not going to tell him that the days of Mitzayra counted, because then he took a haircut, he finished his Mitzayra, and then he's finishing his Naziris at the same time, finishing 50 days. He didn't have a growth of hair of 30 days. So there we say that the days of Naziris, the days of Mitzayra don't count. And then when you finish your Mitzayra, you should count another 30 days. That's what that brisa is talking about. So that's what the brisa says. Megaleach tzoratoi. You take a haircut at the finishing of your tzaras. Then you finish up another 30 days of Nazir, 20 days before you became a Mitzayra. Don't count during the times that you were a Mitzayra, that those days don't count towards your Naziris, and count the after Naziris of another 30 days, the Ha'isle Gidasar, because now you'll have a growth of 30 days of growing here when you finish your Naziris, and therefore you can end your Naziris properly. What was Rav Chizda talking about? Rav Chizda was talking about if you have 100-day Naziris, and therefore, even if you became a Mitzayra day number 30, and it took you 30 days to be a Mitzayra, when you're finishing your Mitzayra, you still have more than 30 days left of your Naziris, because at best, even if you count the days of Mitzayra, you're on day 60, and there are 40 days left. So you'll be able to complete your Mitzayra, even with counting the days that you were Mitzayra, and still have a growth of Gidol Seir. That's what Rav Chizda was talking about. But the Brisa is talking about a Mitzayra of 50, which you'll have if you count the days of Mitzayra, you will not have 30 days of growth. Therefore, the Brisa says you don't count during the times that you are a Mitzayra. Okay, so this is where we'll end off tonight, Be'ez Hashem.
Good.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.